So thank you so much, John and Mary, for joining me today. For those who don't know, my name is Alice and I work at Art Corps as the assistant curator. So I've been supporting the students at the University of Derby with their online presentation of their master's degree show. So we thought we'd invite the students to talk a little bit more about their practice and about the works that they've been making, which will be viewable from the 31st of March on Art Corps Gallery's website. So today I have here with me John and Mary. Thank you so much for chatting with me. I thought we'd start the chat today by just asking you both to introduce yourself and your practice, and maybe tell me a bit more about the collaboration between the two of you as well.
Sure. First of all, thanks for having us. I'm Mary, like you said, and John over here. What's up, John?
Hello.
So yeah, I think we'll just get right into it. We first started collaborating on the MA Fine Art course at the University of Derby. That's where we found out that we both had a common interest, which was sound art. And we also found out that we were the first sound artists at the university, so that was a really big thing for us. So it kind of just happened naturally, the collaborating.
So I started by accompanying Mary on a field recording. It was like a field recording that he was doing at the time. She was using a electromagnetic coil, which is basically a copper coil which picks up signals from the electromagnetic spectrum and converts them into audible noise or sound.
Yeah, so my practice on the MA involved hidden sound, and that was the idea around it. I would interrogate different locations with cultural significance. So, for example, at one point we went to a local viaduct, and this was me and John both. We went to the viaduct and we noticed that there were some people playing music at one end of the viaduct, you know, just like regular pop music. And the music actually resonated in the metal structure, and the whole viaduct kind of amplified it and made it into this like unsuspecting speaker. And I feel like that's something that we go into the field for, these field recordings, to interact with different sound environments.
So the back to the electromagnetic spectrum which Mary was tapping into to get these audible sounds. So she'd be on this one trip, she was recording from electric boxes, these silent structures, but she was taking this coil, putting it on the electric box and getting these sounds out of it. And that to me reminded me of Duchamp's work, 1916 piece With Hidden Noise, which is basically a small sculpture. It's a ball of twine in between two metal plates with a small object placed inside. And when this sculpture is still, it's not making any sound, but when it's rattled, it has the sound. So it's like that idea of potential sound. So these boxes, they had a potential, and Mary was tapping into it and getting these potential sounds out of this silent structure. And I thought that was really interesting. So she would take those and she'd make videos from those, and as a response, I'd make videos responding to Mary's videos.
Yeah, we found a synthesis in our work. I think you said to me before that you uncover unnoticed sound.
Yeah, sound that's unnoticed. So our work is very similar in that respect. Mary's going for these sounds that are inaudible, and I'm going for these sounds that are audible but they're overlooked, they're unnoticed.
Yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. It's so interesting to hear that, and especially thinking about the fact that you both came onto this course as, like, you know, one of the first kind of artists exploring sound. it's really interesting to think that you were both really interested in this idea of like the unheard or the unnoticed, and it feels like a really natural collaboration. And you can definitely see how like your works speak to each other. So obviously we'll see in the online exhibition that you've got these two separate works, but the dialogue is so strong in that, and it's really interesting to hear more about that. I know you touched on just then, John, thinking about like Duchamp as an influence. It'd be good to hear more actually about the artists that have inspired you. I know that we spoke briefly before, so yeah, if you could share some of those artists, that would be great.
Do you want to share some of the artists that you?
I think a good point from Duchamp to go to is John Cage, the avant-garde musician artist John Cage. He derived a lot of his conceptual art from the Duchampian history mind.
Yeah.
So his piece 433 plays into that quite a bit, because he set up a concert, and in lieu of an actual orchestrated concert, it was silence. It was musicians opening and closing their instrument cases, a pianist opening and closing a lid, or I think at one of his initial performances of 433, he noted that you could hear the rain in the background when normally you wouldn't have been able to hear that. So a lot of work in service of the mind.
Yeah, and John Cage's work, that 433, is drawing emphasis to those unnoticed sounds again, which just comes back to the, like I said, the Duchamps with hidden noise. So yeah.
But contemporary-wise speaking, contemporary artists that we, or at least I draw upon, are Harun Mirza, Camille Norman, Christina Kubish, and even an amazing artist named Christine Soon Kim, who's a deaf sound artist. And yeah, I think she has a fellowship right now at Flagler College in St. Augustine. So they set her up with like, so yeah, it's all like coming together with sound art. But I think in one of our previous conversations, we touched on how sound art is such a new thing that there's still first generation sound artists out and about and contributing to the conversation.
Yeah, and I think you're both in a really exciting position to be, graduates who are working in this way, and you can really contribute to the shaping of that in the UK and further afield. It's really great to hear about some of those influences. I'd love to know more about the artist who's deaf and how she responds to sounds that possibly she's maybe imagining, or getting responses from other people. It'd be really great to share some stuff on that. Thanks for letting me know. I guess it would be really good to hear then a little bit more about the work that you're showing as part of your master's degree show, and talk to us about how your ideas came about.
Okay, well, there's actually there's 2 videos each at the moment, because we saw the flyer and we realised that the work on the flyer was different to the work we'd submitted.
Yeah, so
there's two different videos, but how they work is we take it in turns to get the raw data. So Mary will go out with HD cameras, and she'll collect
I'll record video footage from
and the audio,
an environment.
Yeah, and the audio, and then I'll make a response to that video, and then vice versa. I'll go out.
Yeah,
and makes a response.
We'll take turns. Like during one project, I would go out and I would collect the video footage, and he'd add the audio.
Yeah.
And then for another video, he'd create the content, generate images, and then I'd add audio, and then it's kind of like a playing around.
It's like a symbiotic sort of relationship. So the videos that we've submitted are synchronizing, which is it's an
approximately minute-long video.
Yeah, it's a wind turbine, and it relies on the natural phenomenon of the sun. As it cuts through the wind turbine, it cuts it in half. It's like
almost like an
It's
optical
optical illusion,
illusion.
yeah.
Oh, wow.
So Mary took that video, she recorded that, and then I altered the sound on that video. And then as a response to that, I made a video which is called System, and it's a
Generated.
yeah, it's an animated video that's been generated from the still images of Mary's original video.
Oh, wow.
So what I've done is I've scanned in still images of that video, I've animated them, and then I've taken the sound from the original video and I've ran that into rewind. Now I've taken the images and I've ran them back into an audio program and converted the raw data from the images into sound files and altered the sound that way and added that back onto the video. So it's kind of repetitive.
It's a technique that people use called data bending, where you take audio or video and you run it through software or analog hardware, and you just push it to its limits and see what it comes up with.
It's basically exploring that potential sound again, because an image file is just data, and if you run that into sound software, it converts that data into a sound file. So it's like that potential sound. So
and it's very complex. It's trying to get my head around it all. It's really nice, this visualization of sound and being able to see something that you wouldn't otherwise see. That sounds really interesting. So I guess thinking about how you work with these like digital forms, and then obviously we've all been living through a pandemic in the last year, and we've had to really change how we've worked. How has this last year changed the way that you've collaborated, or has it had a shift on your practice, or has it strengthened it? And how have you found generally being a student in the pandemic, being art students?
Well, I think it's made our work stronger in a way.
In a way, yeah, it's presented different challenges. I find that there's more accountability going into a campus and interacting face to face with students.
Yeah.
So that's one of the challenges we had to deal with. Dropped engagement on Zoom calls, critiques. It was all virtualized, but we adapted.
Yeah, we've been very productive. Working digitally, you can work fast, and there's a lot of endless possibilities working digitally. It's almost like a printmaking process where you can just get 1,000 prints out. But
I feel like also because we've been looking over our work over and over again for this upcoming exhibition, that I know that also our work kind of feels isolated and lonely. There's no human figures, and then there's just evidence of human activity, and I feel I'm only realizing this stuff now.
It's like your video that's in there called Metal Bones. It's
it's footage of a rural area of human activity, and you can only hear a track that John helped me with, the audio, and then field recordings. So
so you really were responding to your environment and the times that you were living through, and that it would be really interesting then for when you can come together with people and that human activity, how that then further shifts or changes the work. It'd be really exciting to follow your progress. I know you were staying quite local as well, obviously, weren't you? So you were capturing sounds from Derby and Derbyshire. So really, within that kind of rural context. I mean, the countryside, you find that it's quiet anyway, but it's obviously heightened in a pandemic when there's no one around. So it's really interesting.
I think it was last year when it was the start of the pandemic. We went down to that viaduct, and I just looked up in the sky, and there wasn't a single plane in the sky, and it was so silent.
Yeah.
And it was quite poignant because that viaduct was actually bombed during the First World War by Zeppelin.
Right.
There was one of those really noisy events,
historically
noisy event that's now silent, and it was really poignant. So we did work with that.
That's amazing. Oh, I can't wait to share that work with people to engage with. I guess my last question for you both today, I'd love to chat more, is what is your best advice for anyone kind of thinking of studying or practicing art? I think you two especially, how you talk about being, you know, this kind of first generation of sound artists as well. You have a real chance to inspire people, and I think you will. So if you could give any advice to anyone wanting to study or practice art, what would you say?
Well, let me just start off by saying I don't know if we're the first generation. The first generation is from like the 60s.
Sure, sure.
Bill Fontana.
So like they're like these like seasoned elderly artists.
Christine Cubish, she's first generation.
Yeah, but they have a lot of vitality to them.
Yeah.
It's so surprising that they're like, oh yeah, I was active in the 60s, because they're just like these really in touch, connected
So
people.
what are we then? Third generation, right?
Second, third, but
I say Huri Mirza's second, right?
yeah, he's like a little older than our generation. So,
But yeah, we're there. We're in there. It's still relatively new.
Definitely.
yeah.
What was? Oh yeah, students.
Students,
What would you say?
As far as students go, I would say exactly what I've always been saying. Have a conversation with someone. Talk to someone you wouldn't normally talk to. If you can't go out in these weird times, reach out to someone online. A lot of people are connecting in ways that they normally would have done in person, but just through the internet.
I mean, contemporary art's about an ongoing dialogue. Just keep the dialogue going.
Sure.
That's what I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good advice, and I think it's who knows how we'll be working in the future, but I think you're right, being able to connect in this like digital way, it just opens up so much more for people. So that's really good advice, thank you. I think I think lots of people will watch this and be really inspired by how you work. I think I really admire the collaborative approach.
That's really generous.
No, I think they will, and it's been really great to hear more about that process. I think I want to see more collaboration in the future. I think it's the way forward, definitely. Thank you so much for your time today. And
thank you.
Thank you, Alice.
Oh, you're welcome. Obviously, we'll be
good talking to you.
It was great. So everyone, make sure you tune in on the 31st of March. We visit Art Core Gallery's website and we'll share the works with you. Thank you.